Before you start watching the video today, I just want to let you know that I have nothing against Highlander players. I have nothing against Highlander. This video today is just an interesting thought experiment. So I was reading back through the comments on one of my videos last week, and yes, I do read the comments on my videos, and someone posted something to the effect of, I hate it when people say competitive TF2 and they're only referring to sixes. And I thought about that. I was like, I can't tell if he's joking or not. Like, I can't tell if he's trolling. But then I thought about it some more, and I'm like, I mean, duh, like, obviously Highlander's not really competitive. But then it got me thinking, like, it kind of is. Like, if you look at the definition of competitive, of or relating to a situation in which people or groups are trying to win a contest or be more successful than others. And by that definition, of course, 9v9 Highlander is competitive. But the truth is, and we all know that truth, 9v9 Highlander isn't really competitive. Like, there's not really been any lands for Highlander outside of I think there's been like 2 or 3 Highlander lands ever. I played in a Highlander pug one time when I went to a LAN in Northern California like 3 years ago. But outside of that, there really are no offline competitions for a Highlander, and the number of online competitions for Highlander is very low. People also give Valve a lot of crap, but you have to admit that Valve has not implemented a 9v9 competitive matchmaking into the game yet. They hinted at it during the beta, but it never came out. And the more I think about it, it just makes me think that no, Highlander isn't really ever going to be that competitive esport. In fact, when I talk about how Team Fortress TV is the home of competitive TF2, I look through the competitive subforums and I don't really see very much about Highlander, like, ever. All the Highlander discussions and topics typically live on the UGC forums, which is the only league in North America that currently supports Highlander. So my goal today with this video isn't to be like, lol Highlander, Highlander's not competitive, but it really just got me thinking, like, what would it take for a Highlander to be competitive? What do people like about Highlander that makes it appealing, and how do we transfer that into something that everyone can play, something everyone can play competitively, that they can play in tournaments, they can play offline, that kind of thing. I mean, to me, the biggest problem with Highlander is the matchmaking. There's 9 individual classes that you have to fill for, 18 players in a server, not to mention all the varying skill levels between all the different players. That is like an impossible game to matchmake. Even Sixes matchmaking right now has an incredibly difficult time filling the matchmaking queues. I tried to queue the other day. I was stuck in a 45-minute 6v6 queue. I can't even imagine what it's like to run a Highlander queue. And I live in North America. If I lived in like Australia or something, I doubt that I would ever have an opportunity to play Highlander. I mean, you'd have to schedule those scrims out multiple days in advance. I doubt you can play more than 100 Highlander games in a week. Whereas in Sixes, it's definitely possible to play 100 6v6 games in a week. I mean, you don't really want to play 100 6v6 games in a week. It just happens to be that way because you could play, if you played all day, every day, you might be able to hit 100 games in a week. My point is that Highlander will always struggle to become an esport by any sense of the word. Like, at least Sixes TF2 has a chance of becoming an esport. 9v9 TF2 doesn't really have any prize money in there at all. It's purely just catering to the masses. Now, when I say catering to the masses, I mean that what Highlander has that Sixes doesn't have is that it gives every class the ability to have a say. Every class is represented in Highlander. If you are an engineer main, you're going to have an opportunity to play on a team in Highlander. If you are a spy main, you're going to have an opportunity to play on a team in Highlander. But that's not going to be the case with Sixes. In fact, in my own personal experience, I was actually a spy main, and there were no spies allowed in Sixes. So you had to play one of the standard classes. I ended up picking Scout. There are a few people that I know of off the top of my head that have successfully tried to play spy a lot in Sixes, but you can never really make spy your main in Sixes. So what you're really looking to do if you want to merge Highlander and Sixes together is give those classes, those weird non-standard classes, an opportunity to be represented in sixes. You don't want pyro mains feeling like they can never play sixes because they're a pyro main. What you want is for pyro to be able to be represented in sixes. You want pyro to be strong enough to actually stand a chance as a standard sixes class. Unfortunately, there's only two ways that will ever happen. One, developer support, or two, a pro mod. And a pro mod is probably the worst way to grow your esport because everyone has to download the pro mod. You have to set all your servers to the pro mods. I mean, TF2 is already small enough as it is right now. You don't need to make it even smaller. So the only realistic option here is to cross your fingers and hope that Valve helps you out here. If you're a pyro main, you really want Valve to buff Pyro in that upcoming Pyro update. I mean, it could work, right? Pyro and Scout have two completely different playstyles, but if they're both viable, that'd be kind of cool. I mean, who's gonna complain about more options? Like, sixes players always get flack for wanting to play this stale metagame, but if all 9 classes were viable, you could actually get some pretty interesting and diverse team compositions that you wouldn't see in the modern day competitive 6v6 TF2. And I think that that would be a very welcome change for the competitive scene. But when I say competitive scene, I'm still not referring to Highlander. Even if Pyro got buffed, that wouldn't make Highlander a viable competitive esport in the long term. No matter how equally balanced all 9 classes are, it's going to be extremely difficult to make a matchmaking system around your game when there's 9 individual roles on 2 teams with varying skill levels. No. TF2 would have to be a lot bigger in order to make that happen. So yeah, when I say competitive TF2, I'm referring to sixes. But I have hope for the future. I have hope for every competitive player, whether you are a Pyro main or a Demo Man main. Doesn't really matter to me. Just play the class that you enjoy playing. Hope that class gets buffed. But judging by the way that things have been going over the last couple years, I wouldn't expect that change to happen quickly. Valve takes their time on the balancing for things, and I wouldn't expect them to do anything drastic anytime soon. So if you are a Highlander player, just keep enjoying the game that you love playing, but publicly on the forums, give Valve that feedback. Let Valve know that, yes, I am a heavy main and I would love to be able to play heavy in sixes. Yes, I am a sniper main and I would love to see sniper constantly available in sixes. Who knows? They might actually be listening. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Catch y'all next time.